Daniel, you are good to go.
We're good?
Yes. Okay, everybody, we're going to get started with Mr. Neely.
Okay. I am Daniel Neely, and I'm at Wilson Henrietta, little bitty, tiny, itty bitty school on Highway 75 between Okmulgee and Henrietta. We have 300 birth, to 12. Okay, so 300. I had 77 last year in my ag program. That was 8th through 12, and half of those were 8th graders that I had first hour. So I had 33 8th graders first hour last year. So luckily I'm still here because I wanted to not come to school every morning. Of those 77, about 20 of them have actual livestock projects, okay? And of those 20, 13 of them were rabbit kids over the last 2 years. So, I have a washcloth.
Oh, thank you.
And 5 of those 13 kiddos, that's all they did were rabbits. The other 8 of them showed cattle or sheep. We don't show sheep in our chapter. No one wants to show sheep for some reason. Goats, pigs, but they all showed other species. The 8 kids did, but 5 of them, that's all they showed were rabbits. And this all got started because if you all don't know me, my daughter, she's now 20, I wanted her to do everything I did yes, she's 20. Everything I did, I wanted her to do. You know, I wanted her to show sheep, I wanted her to show cattle, and she said, no, those are too big. She showed a sheep and she got, a side profile, and she was like, I'm done, right? No, sis. So the rabbits were a little bit smaller, easier for her to handle. And so that really was how it all started for me. And then Dylan has taken it to the next level these last couple of years. But, and then I was thinking when I became an ag teacher 7 years ago, I was like, this little poor school needs something. We're supposed to have 100% kids in AET with an SAE. How am I going to get these kids there? And I can't just keep assigning everybody plants out of the greenhouse, because that's what I was doing those first couple of years. Like, here's your plant, here's your plant, here's your plant. And so we decided, our county incorporated broilers, 3 years ago, I think. And my kids were like, chickens are gross, which broilers especially are, because they're you have to have a stomach for them. And then they introduced the fancy birds, and we were like, okay, so I got some kids interested in that, and we did a couple of fancy birds. And I was like, if y'all are going to do fancy birds, we need to start getting rabbits in here, because I know good resources for rabbits. I know where we can get some. And they said, okay, we'll give you a trial year. You got to have 8, and your grain and reserve will make the premium sale. And so we nominated 10, and then the week of the county spring livestock show, 2 of my kids were ineligible, which thankfully there was a couple other pens from another school, so we were able to bring in 8 pens. And then that was last year, which was our inaugural year. And then this year we added fancy rabbits, and we had 30 of those. So it's got my kids that quite can't afford those $5,000, $6,000, $14,000 animals involved. And I have got some of the more non-traditional kids involved, those kids that live in town, those kids that live with grandpa or grandma, or the foster lady that lives on Conifer. She has a big hutch that she lets her kiddos that she has have rabbits. So it has been able to get more of those kids that are involved in my classes involved. And that's that's what we're trying to do at the end of the day, right? Is just get more kids involved. So what I would like to get for you all as the takeaway for this is that rabbits can be a real SAE. I compiled a list, but I did it last week because we were dairy judging Thursday and Friday, so I did it before then. And I had an email last night from a girl who, I don't know if she's teaching in Altus but she's down in the Altus area, and she said, was that you? Got her American degree.
Oh wait, no, that's not me.
Raising and showing rabbits. And I was like, awesome. But I didn't get that email till like last night. And I was like, I've already printed my list, I'll put you on it. And once I get all this stuff uploaded to my Google Drive, I'll share all that with you. But she said she traveled to Broken Arrow and Silent Spring, but for the life of me can't remember her name. But she said she got her American degree raising rabbits. So I mean, she can spend, and you can, because over the years I bet we've spent that much money. I don't know that we've raised that much money, but we have spent that much money with the rabbits. So let's break them down, because everybody wants to know what can we do. We've got meat pens and we've got show rabbits, okay? Show rabbits are more of a long-term commitment. Some rabbits can live. We've got one in the barn that I think is 12 years old. So they can live a while. It was one of Taylor's first, and we still have that stupid rabbit. And, it hops around on 3 legs, and I'm like, is this a good quality of life, sis? Do we need to put this rabbit down? And she's like, no, you can't. So we still have, the 3-legged rabbit. It's never, hadn't been to a show in 15 years, it seems like, ever. But we still have it, and so they are a commitment. But the show rabbit, that kid can use it year after year after year after year if they have to. If they are going to do that and not raise and breed and try and make it an actual true SAE where they're growing it and raising it, I would suggest you getting them a buck rabbit, because buck rabbits can keep their flesh condition and their fur coats, they can come in and out of that. Where a doe kind of hits her peak and then she just kind of plummets off and she gets soft and she gets, she's ready to become a mama. And that's what we want them to do, right? And later on when we look at some of these rabbits, you can tell, oh yeah, those need to be mamas, or yeah, that is a mama. And they are, I brought 3 does and we'll look at some of the age variants in them too. But the meat rabbits, I made a list, and I'm going to get it eventually. But it's got breeders from mainly Oklahoma. There's some that border Oklahoma, because that's the phone call I get so often. Where can I get one? Well, what breed are you looking for? Because I can point you in a direction, but if that person doesn't have any, or we only breed in October, so we only have babies in December, or whatever. I would suggest never buying a rabbit around Easter, because those are going to be culls. But I've made a list, and some of those people I've dealt with, some of those people have no clue who they are, because I am an admin on a rabbit Facebook group, and I just said, hey, send me your information. And I asked for like 4 different things. And if those people left off 2 of those things, I didn't include them on the list. So if you find that page or I asked that question, there are some people, or I had a cutoff date. Last Wednesday I stopped accepting because I was gone. So, but I will get them uploaded as long as they have enough information. Because that's what it's like, where do you get them? And most people, if you tell them this is for a child, this is for a youth exhibitor, they're going to probably start around $40, okay? But you can go up to $200. And I saw a rabbit a couple weekends ago that sold for $800. And I was like, okay, we're getting into that show goat, show sheep, pig range that my kids can't afford. So we need to dial it back down into here. But most of the people on my list, 200 was their max. And I'm going to say that you're going to compete with a $60 to $75 rabbit. and I'm gonna sell rabbits to kids all day long for 40 to 60 bucks.
I'd even throw in there that most of those people in Oklahoma, if you have a question, you can call them back.
Oh yeah, you really want to like build a relationship with that breeder.
Yeah, and they're gonna tell you everything to where some of these, like other species animals, they're like, oh yeah, well here's half of your information because my kid's showing, to where with the rabbits, people are like, yeah, you need to do this and probably come over and fix whatever it is wrong with your rabbit anyway.
So, and usually with the kiddos that I'm going to sell a rabbit to, which my kids usually don't sell their rabbits, you know, they try and keep this group and we might sell this group and then we cull this group. It's hard to get into this group with my kids because they're selfish and they want to win. So we sell this group, but I will always, especially if you buy a doe, we'll breed them to one of them in this group for you, and we aren't going to charge you anything. But that's what we want you to do. We want you to raise your own babies. Yes, ma'am. Did you have a question?
Hold them out at, because that's what I'm having an issue with right now. Is I'm having kids wanting to start breeding theirs because we developed a pretty good rabbit program down there. That's why I was like, oh, that's neat because like
Right.
down there they don't really have it very much, but anyway, or as much. But anyways, but who do you cull them out to? Like,
Well, there's a lot of different places. You can eat them.
okay.
Rabbits are really good eating. Tastes just like chicken. There's a couple of different sales that we go to, and you know, some people are hauling like animals to those sales. We haul our culls to those sales. So if you see us carrying rabbits to those sales, don't buy our rabbits thinking they're going to be show quality. They're going to have some gnarly teeth, or you know, something's going to be wrong with them when we haul the rabbits to those sales. Because usually we feed the coyotes with ours.
Okay, so it's
I knock them in the head and I feed the coyotes. But there is a place in Chickasha that does a meat market once a month, and I'm pretty sure that they take the rabbits and the chickens along with the goats and the sheep. There is a place in, where is 3F? She is in the Shakota area. She's actually between Shakota and Warner, and she butchers, and I think she buys as well. You know, she'll buy them to sell out of her shop because she sells 3F. It's like feathers,
okay.
fur, and
Yeah.
Shelly. I can't think of her name, but she's maybe.
I think I've heard of it.
But I know that she does, like, she's crazy busy with turkeys around Thanksgiving. But she butchers, she buys and butchers, I believe. But we just go to those little those poultry sales is where we take a lot of them to. Chandler's got one that's around us. Mogi has one once a month. There's one in Stillwell, if you want to go clear to Stillwell, which you're on the other side of the state, so I don't know where your side of the state is. There's one in Coweta.
There's one in Pryor, Circle B.
Pryor has one.
Yeah, Peyton Marlin, he has one at the end of the month.
Where's
And-
one that's still
They have it at the sale barn.
Poultry show we have once a month, I think. Oh, you're still, okay, I thought you were still talking about the processing.
No, no, the sale barn. I think it's at the sale barn.
No, the three.
But yeah, that's where we cull them.
Okay.
If you don't want to eat them, which my daughter, she's like, no, those are my baby. Sis, that's their purpose. Remember that. That's their purpose.
I've had a lady reach out to me before about selling some of those to like tractor supply or outlets that aren't good enough to be like show quality. And so that might be like the continuation of that SAE for that kid.
Okay.
Yes, but they usually want them around Easter. You know, they want you to have them ready March 1, and they want you to supply them through June 15th, or usually, you know, the middle of June. And I told the lady that contacted me that I couldn't provide a constant supply that time of year, because we don't breed for that time of year. So that's the show, and that's the list over there. Now the meat, that's a whole nother story. There's not a whole lot of meat pen growers in Oklahoma. And I found that out 2 years ago when we were starting this project. And I said, you know what? I know a lot of Californian breeders though. I'm going to start our own. everything that could go wrong went wrong that year. So if you choose to do that, if you're like, we're going to raise meat pens, have a backup plan. Okay? The two breeders that I have, there's also a man in Texas, Jason Platt. He has really good ones, but you pay for those. He wants to know when your show is, how old your animals can be, and so he's going to ask you some questions, and then he's going to require a pretty hefty deposit. Because he's going to say, how many pins you want? You want 3 pins? Okay, you need a $400 deposit or whatever you've got, you know. But he's going to want to know what your show date is, and then you go back 10 weeks, or in our case, I just got it to where we could do 12 weeks, so we could do a smaller breed, because I've got lots of small breeds in my barn, but I don't have a lot of the big breeds. And I can get a small breed to 3 pounds in 12 weeks. But 10 weeks was our goal, or was our rule, and I got him to give me 2 more weeks. And so I can get those smaller breeds to 3 pounds in 12 weeks. So he's going to ask you, you know, how old can they be? And in most shows, it's 70 days, so 10 weeks old. And I got a copy of our spring livestock show rules over there. If someone says, we're going to do this, we want to put this in our spring livestock, there's some pretty generic ones over there that you all could take and hand it to your fair board and be like, here's some pretty generic rules. We want this in our spring livestock show or whatever. It's also got the fancy rabbits in there as well. And I think the nomination form and everything is over there. So, and if you want that digitally, I'll be more than happy to put it into a drive and share it with you all. Or if you just want me to email
When you
it.
say fancy rabbits, you're talking about all the breeds.
Right. And the meat pens are actually, you know, if you just have one of those, you know, or if a kid has like 4, you know, that 4th one could be a fancy show.
Okay.
And we've done that before. We had a kid say, well, I want 4, and then nothing happened to him, which hopefully by the time you get them, nothing is going to happen to them. They're just going to grow. One might tail off, so if you have that substitute, great. But, you know, you have that extra one that's growing along with them, but it's either bigger or smaller. You enter it in the fancy show. But the thing about the fancy show is our nomination date for our fancies is in December, and our nomination date for our meat pens is in January. So it doesn't work for us. We can't back at them.
Danny, what's some of the good meat breeds? New Zealand and some of that?
New Zealand's, Californians, we use some satins, which the thing about satins is there's a lot of varieties of satins. So you got to make sure and watch what you're breeding in order to keep that uniformity, because a meat pen, if you look at most rules, if you look at the ARBA rules, they have to be the same color, same variety. So like if you do brokens, and you know brokens can be a mix of any color, those 3 brokens have to all be broken blacks or broken blues. They can't just be 3 broken rabbits. They have to be the same variety of broken as well, which
Is that rule in your county?
that's an ARBA rule, and that's what our county rule says, is it follows the ARBA
Because some of
rule.
these smaller counties, I wonder, are they gonna push that?
Right, you know, and that's something that you might highlight and be like, take this rule out, or, you know, before you present it, you know, this isn't gonna, which I told kids, you know, they're not gonna disqualify at our county if you have 2 blacks and a broken black, but you're not gonna place as well. I mean, because that was the deal. We had 2 satin does. We had a black satin doe and a broken black satin doe, and we bred them both to the same buck, which was a black buck. And the black doe was having blues. She was throwing whites. She didn't have 3 of the same of anything. And then the broken doe decided she was going to go 2 days early, and we didn't have a nest box in with her, and we only saved 2 off of the wire, and it was a broken blue and a solid black. So we didn't have enough to pair, and so that's why, that was that first year of anything that could go wrong went wrong. The does were being born, the babies were being born early. We had some first-time mamas that didn't know what they were doing, and they were way too young to be having babies, and they were eating their babies. She had 12 beautiful babies in her nest box that first day, and we came back, and there was like 3 and 9 savaged babies on the wire, and it was like, oh my gosh, why did you do that? So, everything that could go wrong went wrong. But we did luckily have a backup plan. I called one of the breeders that's on there, Brian Long. He's on that list. He raises Californians and New Zealand's, and he bred because he knew we were having our show. And I told him when our dates were. He had some babies, and so we were able to get them from him, luckily. So
What do you do with adults, the females that eat the babies, you just get rid of them? I mean, is it genetic?
At our house, we have a 3 strikes and you're out policy. So we give her another chance, because especially those first-time mamas, they don't know. Something just came out of them. And some of them were young. They were 7, 8 months old, and I don't ever like to have babies born that young to anything.
But it's not uncommon for.
But no, it's not uncommon. And usually, a mama will most definitely, she's going to protect the rest of her baby. So like if she has a baby out on the wire and it's dead, she's afraid that something's going to come after that dead baby. So she's going to eat it to try and get rid of it. But she was eating the live ones, which was weird. And usually you'll notice because she'll pee on them first before she starts eating them. And if they've got pee on them, get those babies out, give them to another mama. Get them wiped off, get a baby wipe out, wipe them off, get them to another mama. Because she's like, something's wrong, this is bad, and she's gonna try and scare them off that way. They didn't get scared off because they couldn't go anywhere because they were this big and they were in a box. So then she decided, I'm gonna eat them. So,
You said that happens sometimes because she's too young?
Sometimes,
Because I had one do it, and I
used to, before we had good feed, it was a nutrient issue. Like back when I was our student's age and I had rabbits, if we had a mama eating babies, she was usually iron deficient. Or that's what the vet told us. So you would want to increase that iron. But now the show feeds, they have that.
This
So you don't-
particular kid did not have trophy.
So you don't do a different feed for your mamas than you do like your
House, not at our house. We do pen pal, and we do pen pal 16%. We don't do pen pal 16% show. We just do pen pal 16%, and we give that to everything. That's another reason why we don't do satins anymore, because satin's like an 18% feed. They like a higher percentage of feed. But the thing about feed is it needs to be fresh, just like any livestock. Our feed store, I went in a couple weeks ago and I was like, I need 200 pounds of our rabbit feed, and he said $60, and I was like, $60? That's like 3 bags of feed. That's because our feed's normally around $20, and it's since gone up to 22, but that's okay. And so I was like, well, how much was it? And he said $15 a bag, and I said, whoa, why? And he said, well, this is that stuff we ordered last fall for you. And I said, nope, I don't want that. Sorry, it's got to be fresh. Maybe in the summer when we're not showing as much, but right now this summer, Dylan's been hitting every weekend, every other weekend. Just like we're going this weekend to another one. So fresh. Big B is a decent feed. You do have to watch it because it's corn-based. And so it's going to get them a little soft, quicker. So you just have to watch that. Purina is okay. Stillwater milling is okay. Manipro that you get at Tractor Supply, if it's fresh, it's okay. I mean, fresh feed is the big thing. You know, and as far as additives, we don't do a whole lot of additives. We might if something's not quite as shiny as it needs to be, especially Dylan's been raising the Havanas now, and they're a luster, you know, they don't have a sheen like the satins, they have a luster to them. And if we've got one that might be a little dull in our luster, we'll give her some black oil sunflower seeds, just to help maybe get some more of that oil to help shine her up.
Daniel, like, I've just raised rabbits before, we try to keep them on full feed, I mean,
Right.
you only need to feed them so much.
Yes, absolutely. Depending on the size, we have 3 cups at our house for measurements. Now, the meat pens, no. Keep them on full feed all the time as much as they'll eat. Feed those meat pens because you want them to grow and grow fast. But this breed right here, we call it our medium breed because the max weight is 6.5 pounds. We feed a half a cup. We feed them 8 ounces.
Once a day?
Once a day. Okay, our dwarf breeds, which we only have Polish at our house, is the dwarf breed. And I think max weight is like 3.5 pounds on those. And we only feed a quarter of a cup for them. 4 ounces. That's all they get. And then our big Californian brood does and the show string, those get a full cup. But your feed should tell you how much to give them, but once a day. And we do 8 o'clock every night. 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock. When we spring forward, we feed at 7. When we fall back, we feed at 8. You know, but we feed because that helps, just like any other animal, that helps keep that digestive tract right. We don't feed any treats at our house. We feed very little hay. The only time we feed hay, we don't feed hay. We feed straw when they've got a potty belly, when they feel like squishy in that belly instead of firm. You know, you shouldn't be able to feel and they shouldn't gurgle. And when they do that, they need some fiber to help clean them out.
So you always feed in the evening?
Yes. And we do that because my kids are not morning kids. And they come home from school and they think that they have to do homework. I mean, what is that? So they, you know, it's like, hey, what time is it? You got to get out to the barn. You know, they all have alarms set on their phones and watches and everything else. At 8 o'clock, they go to the barn. And if it's dark, you know, in the winter, which, you know, usually we feed at 7 in the winter because we follow daylight savings time. But yeah, they feed in the dark. They put on headlamps because we're teachers at our house. We don't have electricity in our barn. So whatever the temperature is outside is what it is in our barn. So, but you'll have people that say air conditioning. You got to keep an air conditioner. If you can do that, great, because you can keep fur all year long. But right now, we are everything in our barn. I mean, just like you can see my apron that I was wearing this morning to load. I mean, we're just going through it like.
So what do you do to keep your rabbits cool?
Nothing at our house because there's too many. There's 54 cages at our house. We don't have a freezer. You could do pop bottles, frozen pop bottles. You could do frozen water bottles. We used to do the frozen water bottle. The cheaper the better because they can chew on it and the water will start dripping out, so that gives them some water too. Or you can use ceramic tile. You can stick those in the freezer. You can pull those out and stick them in those pins and they'll lay on it. But at our house, nothing. I think there might be a fan out there right now, but it's a box fan that's, you know, this big, $15 at the Dollar General. You know, we don't have a big, you know, livestock fan. We believe in natural selection. The strong will survive at the Neely house.
Do you think that helps you though, as far as when you're traveling and that kind of stuff, and the stress of the heat or cool, cold, that they're acclimated to the weather better?
Absolutely. Yeah, because like when we travel somewhere, when we go to a show in the winter, we don't turn on the heater in the car. When we travel to a show in the summer, I don't, but because that boy doesn't like the hot. But We keep the air conditioner low. We don't blare it, get it freezing cold like, usually when you get in the car, you're like, oh, crank it up. When we're hauling the rabbits, we don't. But we keep them in the front too. But we drive little compact cars because we can pack up 24. We can get 24 in the car with the 4 of us in the back of our little hybrid. So I mean, we can. I mean, you can. You could get 24 rabbits in our car. When I'm only hauling 1 or 2 kids, the numbers go up, and so the less, because they like to haul and they like to take lots because they chase national sweepstakes points. So, but back to feed. Yeah, fresh, 16%. No treats. We don't feed carrots. Lettuce, iceberg lettuce is the worst because it is 99% water, and that'll give them diarrhea. That'll hurt their guts. If you want to give them greens, give them kale. Sweet potatoes is a fun treat for them. Bananas. Just make sure that there's no pit in the fruit that you're feeding them, or the tree. If you want to give them something to chew on, because their teeth constantly grow, so they like to chew on stuff. We use pine cones because people bring us trash bags of pine cones. We just throw pine cones in there, and you put it in the barn and you leave because it gets loud in there. Just as long as it's not from that pitted fruit. Don't give them an apple tree because of I don't know what toxin that's in it, but get the.
So you just throw pine cone in there?
Yeah, pine cones.
So just
Yep.
have at it?
Yep. Now, like this one right here, she's special because I don't know why Dylan left this in here, but like these little doodads, they're all wooden beads. They chew on those too, but he won that as a prize because I'm not going to take the time to make those. We have 54 cages at our house.
Oh, that's wood?
Yeah, they're little wooden beads, and they're natural. They're colored. I think that purple doesn't look very natural colored, but or if we're at the dollar store and they have those ABC blocks that don't have any coloring on them, those are a good fun one for them. But pine cones, because I'm telling you, my mother-in-law brings me every time she comes to my house 2 trash bags full of pine cones, and I mean they're the big 55-gallon. This was one of my kiddos, why I think that you can turn it into an SAE and make it a kid get a state degree, because I had to shorten it up. But she bought the rabbits for, where is it? Way down here. I don't have the year. She paid $100 for these rabbits because she bought them in 2021. We buy them right before Christmas. And she bought feed every week, which I make the kids. We have at our shop, because I haven't had a ag met class in the last 3 years, but that's beside the point. I had bought 2 6-hole stackers from Tortoise and Hare. They're also on my supply list as a vendor. They make cages. It was a 6 condo, so 2, 2, 2, and I bought 2 of those. So I have 12 holes, and then I bought another 9-holer this year. So I have 21 holes at the school, and those 6 are 3x3s, and we will put a meat pen in those 3x3s. We'll also put big rabbits in those as well. I've got a kid that's got a creme d'argent. If anybody wants a creme d'argent, I got one for sale. It's 3x3 cage, and we can raise the meat pens in those, because when you buy them, originally they're this big, and by the time you're done with them, they're 6 pounds, so they're this big. But we've got those. We bought them from Tortoise and Hare. I used $4.12 money on them, and I charged the kids rent. because they use the water at the school and whatever. But we charge them $50 a year, and that's for the whole year. And that's if that's not the spring semester, that's the whole year, $50, which this kiddo, I think she has had some fancy rabbits too, because it doesn't say who it is, does it? I think this was Scout, because she made the premium sale. And you know, she had 5 rabbits at the school because she had a breeding pair as well, but then she never bred them. I make them buy feed every week because you're feeding each rabbit approximately a half a pound of feed. So you're going through 1.5 pounds of feed a day for your meat pen. And when we have, last year we had 6. So I was having, the one kid had 2 pens. So I was having 5 bags of feed brought every week to the school. And that's totally up to them, how they want to do it. If they want to be like, Mr. Neely, we're going to feed these rabbits for 7 weeks, so here's my 7 bags of feed because mom just got paid, so here we had $140, we bought 7 bags of feed. Or if they're, well, next week is when mom gets paid, and so I'm going to bring 2 bags next week. I just have a little check board out there, and when you bring your feed, Mr. Neely initials that you brought 2 bags of feed. And you know, you're good for 2 weeks, and then you have to bring 2 more bags. Or, you know, our goal, I want to say 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 weeks. We did 7 weeks of feed with the kids, so 7 bags. And I did, last year I had one kid say, Mom and Dad gave me money for Christmas, so I went and bought all 7 bags, here they are. Great, you're good. Checked your name off, and that gave that little kiddo that mama doesn't get paid until the end of the month time, you know, we've got extra bags. You're good, you're covered. Because we also have the kids that have the fancy rabbits in the barn, we don't make them bring as much feed. But this kiddo did the meat pen. So $15 is all it costs to enter our spring livestock show. She made the premium sale and made $1,200, which that's a rough estimate. I don't know why that's not exact. And then my son ended up buying those rabbits because I don't know why he bought those rabbits. Because we needed more rabbits at our house, of course. They were good. They were good quality. I mean, they were nice rabbits. I mean, they were the Grand Champion pen. But I don't.
So those are the meat rabbits.
This is a meat rabbit transaction list. It doesn't show the initial buy, which I thought I had that on there. It just has the year. I should have done all years. I could pull that up maybe. But that would make that $305 is what she spent over the whole time. And she made $1,350. So she walked away with $1,045. And she was a senior, so that's a pretty good, nice chunk of change going into your pocket for your senior year for graduation.
But can't they show the same rabbit multiple years?
Okay, our county has a rule where if you make the premium sale, you cannot. Okay, and meat pens you cannot, because they have a 10-week window, and once they're done, you can take those rabbits and you can show them as individuals, those meat pens, but you can show those rabbits year after year. But again, if they're going to do that, I would highly suggest a buck, because I'll show you some does here in a minute, because I brought 3 does.
Do they tattoo the rabbits here and hang out?
Yes, yes. And most of the time, your breeder's going to do that for you. But if you have to do that, if they just give you rabbits and you have to tattoo them, that bender on the bottom, they do carry ink. They carry tattoo pens, or if you want to, I've heard that there's a new a tattoo marker that they're using at like spay and neuter clinics that they mark on the dogs somewhere, and it's a marker. So you just write it in like a marker, It stays a long time, but it's not forever permanent like these tattoos are. But
Like a hog
it-
ear tattoo?
no.
Too big?
no, I mean, you can do that, but the rabbit's gonna squeal, and depending on, you know, your kiddo, are they gonna be able to hold on to that? Because, I mean, we did that last year at our spring livestock show because I wasn't there for some reason, because I have a tattoo pin, and they were clamp tattooing, and they did 3 rabbits, and the 3rd rabbit squealed, and the kid freaked out and dropped the rabbit, and she was like, I'm never showing rabbits again, and it was traumatizing because, I
Yours
mean,
aren't big enough for those.
we did it in Holland.
For real?
And we used a cattle tattooer on a Holland. The squeeze ones. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, you can use those, but there's a pin. It's a whole lot easier. It's like writing. It's like a toothbrush, electric toothbrush that they put a needle in is what it is. I didn't bring mine. I guess I should have brought mine to show you, but that's really all it is. It's an electric toothbrush that they've changed the top on it, and it's a needle that moves up and down instead of the toothbrush. So,
Wasn't as bad as the big tattoo?
no. And I use, I go to Ulta. Is it Ulta? Is that the
Makeup place?
makeup store? And there's like ear numbing spray that they spray on your ears when you get your ears pierced. I got some of that. It just says ear numbing spray, and it's in a little white and yellow, and I spray that in the rabbit's ear, and I rub it until the tip of my thumb is numb, and then I tattoo, and that takes a little bit of the edge off. They're still going to squirm. That's why I usually wrap them up in a towel, and I just pull out that one ear, and I just tattoo that one ear. Is all I do. But I mean, most rabbit places carry that. I was Googling when that vet tech told me about those markers, and I was like, I've never heard of that. And I tried to find them, but I don't know. I even looked at Valley Vet to see, and I was like, where are you getting these? So if someone finds those markers, let me know where you found them, because that might be a whole lot easier for validation day when I'm trying to tattoo. Last year I had to tattoo, what did we have? 10 pins, and none of them had tattoos. So I tattooed 35 rabbits, 38, something, because some kids had more, 3s in a pin, but some of them brought 5, or we could nominate up to 6. So I was tattooing every last one.
How
If I
many
could-
digits do you normally put in the rabbits here?
When I'm doing it for somebody else, I tell them for free, I do 3 digits. Okay? You can pay me $5 and I'll put whatever you want in there. My kid has had one, her name was Big Fat Ugly Doe. And that's what was on her pedigree. That's what she wanted in her ear. And I put it in an ear that was about that big. Big Fat Ugly Doe. And my son's got a thing where he names all of his Havanas. So like, we've got a Veruca, tattoo that. But usually 3. You could do 1. I mean, you could just do 1, 2, 3, 4. You could do A, B, C, D. However you want to. I mean, like if it's accounting and the county wants to put a special, we don't at our county, but we could put an O for Omogi, I guess. But we just, whatever is in the ear is what we. And I'm a 3. All these does have 5 because they have a number, and then their dad, and then their mom is how they're identified. The first 2 letters identify their dad, and the second 2 letters identify their mom, because the moms and the dads both have a 2 name. I'll have to look and try and figure out, but I don't. But that's the system that we use on the Florida Whites. But that's because when we bought into the Florida Whites, that's how they were purchased. So we try and keep them the way that they are, so the pedigrees all kind of look uniform. Which is another thing, pedigrees. They don't have to have a pedigree. You can buy a rabbit, and as long as it meets standard of perfection, it meets the breed requirements, you can show it. As long as it looks like that rabbit, it appears like that rabbit, you can show it. You don't have to have that pedigree. And if if counties are gonna require that, I would highly push them to not. Because you don't. Tulsa, you don't have to have it. ARBA shows you don't have to have it. The only reason why you have to have a pedigree is if you're going to register or grand your rabbit with the ARBA. And when you register your rabbit, you're just paying $8 for them to tattoo a number in their right ear that goes back, it just matches the paperwork. That number on the top, that's the number they put in the ear. If they're granded, they win 3 grand champion legs, which that's a whole nother thing. I wasn't going to get into that because I didn't really want to talk a whole lot about ARBA. But if they get those 3 grand champion legs, then they put an R for registered and a circle around it.
So there's some perks to being a part of the.
Right. Yes.
ARBA.
And you have to have that. You have to have that pedigree, and it has to be a full 3 generations pedigree in order to get that registration, in order to get that grand champion certification. Because they do mail you a nice little paper that you could frame or whatever.
Right.
And then they send you back the pedigree, and the more grand champions you have in the pedigree, like the prettier it is. If all of them have it, it's gold. If there's this many in it, it's blue, red, whatever. But we don't do that, and we've got some rabbits that have 20 grand champion. We don't do that. So I think that they could. I mean, she didn't write down any of her manure sales. We do manure sales as well. We save all these bags of feed that we're feeding, and we dump the manure in the bags. And we have about 4 little old ladies that come and buy bags of manure for $10 a piece. And one of them wants 3 bags a week. So, I mean, sometimes if she's the only one coming, her bags are going to be a little heavier because we're going to try and get all of it in there. Otherwise, it just goes and gets dumped out on the outfield of the softball field, and they get mad because they have to mow more. And I'm like, I don't know why, because it makes it pretty, but it's just that one area. It's like over the fence. So, show box supplies. Do you really need a show box? Not really. My kids carry a toolbox that's about yay big. And the reason why they carry a toolbox is because most of the time when we go to shows, we do an overnight. We'll go Friday night and we'll stay Friday night, so they have to feed. If we go one day, we don't take feed because that's going to screw them up because we feed at 8 o'clock at night, right? But in that show box, 4 things. That's all you need. Other than feed, if you're going to do feed. You need toenail trimmers, which you could do that at home as well, so you don't have to take those to the show. And we use the cheapy ones that you get, like at Dollar Tree for $1.25, but these don't last long. They sell these at Dollar General, they sell them at Walmart, they sell them at the feed store. Depending on where you buy them is how much you're going to pay for them. But these are just the cheapy ones that we use. You could also use human fingernail clippers, because all you're doing is taking the very tip of them off. You're not going way down in there. Especially if it's a dark toenail, because you don't know where that quick is. So, we just take the tips off. We go the hairline, wherever we trim the hair, the toenail into the hairline is what we do. I am running out of time. It's Tim's fault, because he... and then microfiber towels and just a little spray bottle like that. You can get those in a twin pack for nothing. And then a cat brush like that black one, but we hardly ever use that. We use a hand. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I wanted to spend more time with you all evaluating. Showmanship, I believe very strongly in showmanship. I think if a kid's going to have an animal, they really need to participate in showmanship. ARBA showmanship, their scorecard, that's actually the KV card, I think. I brought a copy of that. It's a whole different level than goat, sheep, cattle, pig. Yeah, they're not near as big, but those kiddos have to know a lot. And I mean, you start at the nose and you go to the tail, and every disqualification you need to rattle off. You need to know the points of the scorecard. It's intense. And a kiddo that's going to do it and do it right is going to spend 5 to 7 minutes talking about their rabbit. So, evaluation really quickly. I'm sorry. Let me just get out to you. Is this the right one? Yep. And then hateful heifer. Come here. So, these two rabbits, there's about a year age difference between them. This one just turned a year old, and she's the one that's shy. She just came off the show string. But if you feel them, you can feel the firmness. This one's still firm. This one's still got some muscle tone to it. This girl's kind of soft. You can feel her spine. So when you're going somewhere, just like any other animal, put your hands on them. You can tell, you can feel that muscle in this rabbit. You can feel the muscle in this rabbit. She's not a bad rabbit. She's just old. She's got all this extra skin up here. You can feel her spine, and ask them, pose that rabbit for me. What's the proper way to pose it? You want those front feet under those eyes, and you want that back feet underneath that hip, or that high point. And even when you still pose her that way, you can still feel that spine. You can see that width because she's still got it. I mean, she wouldn't be at our house if she was a bad rabbit. But you can feel that spine. She needs to be in production. So, and I've got them. If y'all want to handle them, I did groom them pretty good, so they're not pulling any fur. You can also do a little bit of, you can tell on fur as well. This one is out of fur. It's too short. It's really coarse. And this girl just came off the show string, so she's got that nice length and that nice feel to it. If I had some water, I could really, I do. Who are you? Come here, Sissy. And the microfiber cloth just pulls out any of that fur. That if there's any of that fur that's still around, and I mean you can feel that if you all want to. Because I'm a hands-on learner, so that's the way I teach best is. So, and really, can you tell?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
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 And she's not posed up good.
And then at the end of this workshop, we have 2 winners of our first drawing in here. It worked out handily, I swear it was rigged. But Daniel and Tim, you were the 2 of the first winners. I know.
And see, we're gonna start using this for even our meat pens because I got them. To add the extra 2 weeks and minus the pound.
What circuit are you typically participating in shows with your children? Say ARBA, is that what that is?
ARBA.
So if I were just trying to get students involved and give them an opportunity to go to a handful of shows, probably with like meat, rabbits, and stuff would they need to try and just work it through their county, get that established? Is there one that state shows?
There's the other organization.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Which, my kids have won lots of scholarships with. So, I mean, it's not a bad organization at all.
Is there a handful of
But,
local ones like within the state?
but most of those, they let any youth come to those.
Okay.